All these noble results of inspired madness I can mention, and many more. Therefore, let us not be afraid on that point, and let no one disturb and frighten us by saying that the reasonable friend should be preferred to him who is in a frenzy. Let him show, in addition, that love is not sent from heaven for the advantage of lover and beloved alike, and we will grant him the prize of victory. We, on our part, must prove that such madness is given by the gods for our greatest happiness, and our proof will not be believed by the merely clever, but will be accepted by the truly wise. First, then, we must learn the truth about the soul, divine, and the human, by observing how it acts and is acted upon. And the beginning of our proof is as follows. All these noble results of inspired madness I can mention, and many more. Therefore, let us not be afraid on that point, and let no one disturb and frighten us by saying that the reasonable friend should be preferred to him who is in a frenzy. Let him show, in addition, that love is not sent from heaven for the advantage of lover and beloved alike, and we will grant him the prize of victory. We, on our part, must prove that such madness is given by the gods for our greatest happiness, and our proof will not be believed by the merely clever, but will be accepted by the truly wise. First, then, we must learn the truth about the soul divine and human by observing how it acts and is acted upon. And the beginning of our proof is as follows. Every soul is immortal, for that which is ever moving is immortal. But that which moves is something else or is moved by something else, when it ceases to move, ceases to live. Only that which moves itself, since it does not leave itself, never ceases to move. And this is also the source and beginning of motion, for all other things which have motion. But the beginning is ungenerated. For everything that is generated must be generated from a beginning. But the beginning is not generated from anything. For if the beginning were generated from anything, it would not be generated from a beginning. And since it is ungenerated, it must be also indestructible. For if the beginning were destroyed, it could never be generated from anything, nor anything else from it, since all things must be generated from a beginning. Thus, that which moves itself must be the beginning of motion. And this can be neither destroyed nor generated. Otherwise, all the heavens and all generation must fall in ruin and stop, and never again have any source of motion or origin. But since that which is moved by itself has been seen to be immortal, one who says that this self-motion is the essence and the very idea of the soul will not be disgraced. For everybody which derives motion from without is soulless, but that which has its motion within itself has a soul, since that is the nature of the soul. But if this is true, that which moves itself is nothing else than the soul. Then the soul would necessarily be ungenerated and immortal. Concerning the immortality of the soul, this is enough, but about its form we must speak in the following manner. To tell what it really is would be a matter for utterly superhuman and long discourse. But it is within human power to describe it briefly in a figure. Let us therefore speak in that way. We will liken the soul to the composite nature of a pair of winged horses and a charioteer. Now, the horses and the charioteers of the gods are all good and of good descent, but those of other races are mixed. And first the charioteer of the human soul drives a pair, and secondly one of the horses is noble and of noble breed, but the other quite the opposite in breed and character. Therefore in our case the driving is necessarily difficult and troublesome. Now we must try to tell why a living being is called mortal or immortal. Soul, considered collectively, has the care of all that which is soulless, and it traverses the whole heaven, appearing sometimes in one form and sometimes in another. Now when it is perfect and fully winged, it mounts upward and governs the whole world. But the soul which has lost its wings is borne along until it gets hold of something solid, when it settles down, taking upon itself an earthly body, which seems to be self-moving because of the power of the soul within it. And the whole, compounded of soul and body, is called a living being, and is further designated as mortal. It is not immortal by any reasonable supposition, but we, though we have never seen or rightly conceived a god, imagine an immortal being which has both a soul and a body, which are united for all time. Let that, however, and our words concerning it, be as is pleasing to God. We will now consider the reason why the soul loses its wings. It is something like this. The natural function of the wings is to soar upwards and to carry that which is heavy up to the place where dwells the race of the gods. More than any other thing that pertains to the body, it partakes of the nature of the divine. But the divine is beauty, wisdom, goodness, and all such qualities. By these, then, the wings of the soul are nourished and grow. But by the opposite qualities, such as vileness and evil, they are wasted away and destroyed. Now the greater leader in heaven, Zeus, driving a winged chariot, goes first, arranging all things and caring for all things. He is followed by an army of gods and spirits, arrayed in 11 squadrons. Hestia alone remains in the house of the gods. Of the rest, those who are included among the 12 great gods and are accounted leaders are assigned each to his place in the army. There are many blessed sights and many ways hither and thither within the heaven, along which the blessed gods go to and fro, attending each to his own duties, and whoever wishes and is able follows, for jealousy is excluded from the celestial band. But when they go to a feast and a banquet, they proceed steeply upward to the top of the vault of heaven, where the chariots of the gods, whose well-matched horses obey the rein, advance easily, but the others with difficulty. For the horse of evil nature weighs the chariot down, making it heavy, and pulling it toward the earth, the charioteer and pulling toward the earth, the charioteer whose horse is not well trained. There the utmost toil and struggle await the soul, for those that are called immortal. When they reach the top, pass outside, and take their place on the outer surface of the heaven. And when they have taken their stand, the revolution carries them round, and they behold the things outside of the heaven. But the region above the heaven was never worthily sung by any earthly poet, nor will it ever be. It is, however, as I shall tell, for I must dare to speak the truth, especially as truth is my theme. For the colorless, formless, and intangible, truly existing essence, with which all true knowledge is concerned, holds this region and is visible only to the mind, the pilot of the soul. Now the divine intelligence, since it is nurtured on mind and pure knowledge, and the intelligence of every soul which is capable of receiving that which befits it, rejoices in seeing reality for a space of time, and by gazing upon truth is nourished and made happy until the revolution brings it again to the same place. In the revolution it beholds absolute justice, temperance, and knowledge, not such knowledge as the beginning as has a beginning, and varies as it is associated with one or the another of the things we call realities, but that which abides in the real, eternal, absolute. And in the same way it beholds and feeds upon the other eternal verities, after which, passing down again within the heaven, it goes home. Let's redo this. Now, now the divine intelligence, since it is nurtured on mind and pure knowledge, and the intelligence of every soul which is capable of receiving that which befits it, rejoices in seeing reality for a space of time, and by gazing upon truth is nourished and made happy until the revolution brings it again to the same place. In the revolution it beholds absolute justice, temperance, and knowledge, not such knowledge as has a beginning and varies as it is associated with one or another of the things we call realities, but that which abides in the real eternal absolute. And in the same way it beholds and feeds upon the other eternal verities, but that which abides in the real eternal absolute. And in the same way it beholds and feeds upon the other eternal verities, after which, passing down again within the heaven, it goes home, and there the charioteer puts up the horses at the manger, and feeds them with ambrosia, and then gives them nectar to drink. Such is the life of the gods, but of the other souls, that which best follows after God and is most like him, raises the head of the charioteer up into the outer region, and is carried round in the revolution. Let's try that again. Such is the life of the gods, but of other souls, that which best follows after God and is most like him, raises the head of the charioteer up into the outer region, and is carried round in the revolution, troubled by the horses and hardly beholding the realities. And another sometimes rises and sometimes sinks, and because its horses are unruly, it sees some things and fails to see others. The other souls follow after, all yearning for the upper region, but unable to reach it, and are carried round beneath, trampling upon and colliding with one another, each striving to pass its neighbor. So there is the greatest confusion and sweat of rivalry, wherein many are lamed, and many wings are broken through the incompetence of the drivers, and after much toil they all go away without gaining a view of reality. And when they have gone away, they feed upon opinion. But the reason of the great eagerness to see where the plain of truth is lies in the fact that the fitting pasturage for the best part of the soul is in the meadow there, and that wing on which the soul is raised up is nourished by this. And this is the law of destiny, that the soul which follows after God and obtains a view of any of the truths is free from harm until the next period. And if it can always attain this, it is always unharmed. But when, through inability to follow, it fails to see, and through some mischance is filled with forgetfulness and evil and grows heavy, and when it has grown heavy, loses its wings and falls to earth, then it is the law that the soul shall never pass into any beast as its first birth, But the soul that is seen the most shall enter into the birth of a man, who is to be a philosopher, or a lover of beauty, or one of musical or a loving nature, and the second soul into that of a lawful king, or warlike ruler, and the third into that of a politician, or man of business, or a financier, the fourth into that of a hard-working gymnast, or one who will be concerned with the cure of the body, and the fifth will lead the life of a prophet, or someone who conducts mystic rites. To the sixth, a poet or some other imitative artist will be united. To the seventh, a craftsman or husbandman. To the eighth, a sophist or demagogue. To the ninth, a tyrant. Now, in all these states, whoever lives justly obtains a better lot, and whoever lives unjustly a worse. For each soul returns to the place whence it came in 10,000 years, for it does not regain its wings before that time has elapsed, except the soul of him who has been a guileless philosopher or a philosophical lover. These, when for 3 successive periods of 1,000 years they have chosen such a life, after the third period of 1,000 years, becomes winged in the 3,000th year, and go their way. But the rest, when they have finished their first life, receive judgment, and after the judgment, some go to the places of correction under the earth and pay their penalty, while the others, made light and raised up into a heavenly place by justice, live in a manner worthy of the life they led in the human form. But in the 1,000th year both come to draw lots and choose their second life, each choosing whatever it wishes. Then a human soul may pass into the life of a beast, and a soul which was once human may pass again from a beast into a man. For the soul which has never seen the truth can never pass into human form. For a human being must understand a general conception, formed by collecting into a unity, by the means of reason, the many perceptions of the senses. And this is a recollection of those things which our soul once beheld, when it journeyed with God, and lifting its vision above the things which we now say exist, rose up into real being. And therefore it is just that the mind of the philosopher only has wings, for he is always, so far as he is able, in communion through memory with those things, the communion which causes God to be divine. Far as he is able, in communion through memory with those things, the communion with which causes God to be divine. And therefore it is just that the mind of the philosopher only has wings, for he is always, so far as he is able, in communion through memory with those things, the communion with which causes God to be divine. Now a man who employs such memories rightly is always being initiated into perfect mysteries, and he alone becomes truly perfect. Now a man who employs such memories rightly is always being initiated into perfect mysteries, and he alone becomes truly perfect. But since he separates himself from human interests and turns his attention toward the divine, he is rebuked by the vulgar, who consider him mad, do not know that he is inspired. All my discourse so far has been about the fourth kind of madness, which causes him to be regarded as mad, who, when he sees the beauty of earth, remembering the true beauty, feels his wings grow and longs to stretch them for an upward flight, but cannot do so, and like a bird gazes upward and neglects the things below.